Alright, so hello everyone. Dungeon Master Rick here. May change that title depending on how Wizards of the Coast continues to, fuck around and find out in the coming days. Anyway, I am the one who does the stuff and the things for the Hammer of the Gods podcast, and I'm here tonight to play a little bit more of the Solo Cthulhu Alone Against the Flames. Because it's been a couple weeks, figured I would get back to it. So, last time we met our, I don't know if hero is the right word, but our main character for this, Myron, who was on his way to a new job in the capital city of Athenian, the capital of New Alexandria. If you missed last time, I am adapting things from the Solo Cthulhu game to our homebrew world of New Alexandria. So sometimes I'll have a little bit of a pause just because I'm trying to think and kind of BS something on the fly, converting it from 1920s America to ancient Greekish setting. So on the way to the capital, Myron was on a ship which kept having some problems. Ended up in this small town with no name, at least not a name that he knows of, seemingly stranded because he went and stayed the night at basically an inn that the captain of the ship had recommended, and woke in the morning to find that the ship was gone. So Myron finds himself a little bit stranded and probably unsure of what to do. So we're going to pick back up. Let me see. So the last entry that we read is, you dream of fire in the grate, coruscating colors shimmering through the dancing tongues of flame. At first they're tiny, almost microscopic, but then they grow and grow until a kaleidoscopic inferno spills from the fireplace, spreading across the floor, up the sheets. You wake with a start. Daylight glints through the curtains. You get up and examine the grate, blinking the sleep from your eyes. It is quite cold. So, it says if you've taken any damage, you may heal 1 hit point, but I didn't take any damage. So, we're going to go to our next entry. Okay. May seems to... Oh, not May. I forgot. So, I forgot that we didn't name the innkeeper, but I am changing her name from what it originally was to a more Greek-sounding name, Thoe. Although she didn't give her name, so that's something we'll have to introduce here in a second. But the innkeeper seems to have no running water. Let me fix that. The inn seems to have supplied a jug of water, and you freshen up at the washstand. The innkeeper, who introduces herself as Thoe, cooks a hearty breakfast and leaves you in peace to eat. So, by early morning, well, by shortly after dawn, you're paid, packed up, and ready to go. You bid Thoe goodbye, and she wishes you the best for your new career in Athenian. You are already tired of your heavy bags. Hopefully Silas has repaired the ship, and you can resume on your long journey. I forgot. I read ahead slightly. A sourpuss he might be, but the old captain seemed to understand his trade well enough. You check the sun, and it's still early. You round the final corner to the pier, only to find the ship is gone. You put your bags down and search the area, trekking up and down the slopes and around the corners. At the edge of the village, you trace the long road back as it winds across the hills. As time passes, there's still no ship to be seen. Even in the distance, across the water, you see no sails. A passing villager notices your bags. Ah, you're looking for Silas. I heard him take off at first light. He's due back in 3 or 4 days, but if you need a place to stay, Thoe rents a room. The man raises his hat to you and strolls on into the village. You curse Silas under your breath. Bastard. You wonder if the old goat has stranded you here on purpose. Seems like it. Thoe is doing laundry and looks surprised to see you again. Forgot something? When you explain the situation, she offers to store your bags while you try to arrange alternative transport. You are grateful to relinquish the load. Nobody here has anything like a ship. She strokes her chin and narrows her eyes. Maybe you could find somebody with a cart, though, for your bags. I could ask around later. Or you could ask at the village hall. Maybe someone there will know. You might even ask some of the merchants. The workshops are the first left, just down the street. She reaches over and squeezes your wrist. Don't worry, I won't see you sleeping in the street, money or no money. You thank her and turn to face the village. As you wander the streets of the village without any particular destination in mind, the village is built upon a relatively flat upland with splendid views. To the north, the hazy white tips of mountains reach for the heavens. To the south, the sparkling waters of a beautiful lake touch the horizon. The village itself takes less than 5 minutes to cross from edge to edge. You arrived at the winding road to the west. The only other road leads to the south, following a lower ridge of land as it turns east. In the southwest of the village, an open grassy space borders a ruined building and a graveyard cresting the cliffs. To the northeast, the 3 main thoroughfares meet at a raised black structure. It looms stark against the blue sky. Okay, so now I've got some options. I can ask about transport at the local stores, seek out the village hall, or walk down to the lower level and check out the eastern road. I think Myron's gonna check out the lower level. The air's fresh, and the walk down to the lower ridge invigorating. You notice cultivated fields stretching through the lowlands around the village. And among the crops, some livestock, but no horses. Are you going to have to make your journey onward on foot? Further down, the road skirts the edge of the ridge and descends. There are a few scattered hovels here with signs of habitation. They are set a substantial distance apart. As you examine them, the door opens, and an older man steps out. He wears tattered clothes, but carries a piece of cloth, which he tosses over his head like a hood. As he does this, he sees you and freezes. So I now have to make a luck roll, which I forgot to have dice ready for this, because I am a super professional streamer, in case you guys didn't know. Okay. Also, one of these days I'll figure out what a good virtual dice roller is that is, let's see, that I can use consistently, because I'm awful at that. Okay, so I rolled an 84, and let me look at Myron's luck. I'm pretty sure that was a bad roll, because I don't think he's... Oh yeah, no, he's not very lucky. His luck is a 20, and that's way above that. So, we'll go back to our description. So, failed that. We'll go to this one. The strange man breaks into a run, fleeing from you along the ridge. His gait is lopsided, but his movements have a maniacal intensity. And I now have the option to give chase, or if I have better things to do, continue. Yeah, I think I can't see why Myron would want to chase this guy down. You turn back to the road and your core business, getting out of the village and onwards. The ridge gives you a good viewpoint from which you can see the course of the road. It winds with the hills, disappearing into woodland for a while before emerging further on. You lose sight of it somewhere towards the second patch of woodland. By your best estimation, it is at least 6 or 7 miles distant. You see no other settlements or traffic on the road. It may be worth taking a chance and walking. The weather is still mild, but you'll probably need some supplies before you attempt it. You're beginning to get your bearings around the village. Would you like to explore more? Let's see. Okay, so my options are ask about the transport again. Well, not again. I can again ask about the transport. Seek out the village hall. I could go back to the lower level, which is probably going to have the same effect. And that seems a little forced. Examine the large metal structure. Explore the temple. And look for local people with their own transport needs. I think the large structure is interesting. So, you walk up the approach, the most central of the village's major streets. It points directly at this odd structure. As you emerge from the shade of the nearby buildings, you are greeted by a magnificent panorama. Spread forth from the north to the southeast. The last colors of fall tint the hills in a sleepy gold. The structure, by contrast, is made from uncompromising iron, singed black. It supports an immense curved platform at the level of your head. Further struts snake up to a central point. It looks like they may have been some kind of sculpture at one time, but now they are twisted and melted beyond recognition. An older gentleman passes, looking up at you with rheumy eyes. Are you here for the festival? He asks. That's the beacon. When they light it, night after next, you'll be able to see it 10 miles away. He gives a little nod of satisfaction and then moves on, leaning on his walking stick. Now you notice bundles of wood, tied and stacked against the buildings nearby. Perhaps the festival would be an interesting diversion, but you really must head on as soon as possible to reach your new job. So it now asks me to make a spot hidden check. Oh, thank you, Plush. Forgot to do the thing again. Stream info should be updated. I keep forgetting to hit the done button. Okay. Definitely not doing Chaotic Academia tonight. Especially not solo. It'll be a little tricky. Okay. So, spot hidden. Let me look at my character sheet. See what my ability is for that. Okay, I've got a 40. And I rolled a 33. So that is a success. As you walk away from the iron structure, you notice something strange about the construction of the village. All the wooden dwellings are concentrated in the west and southwest. To the east and northeast, the closest to the beacon, the buildings are formed with dark brick and clay. Does this mean the settlement began at the beacon and spread west? Let's see, you may check mark the small box beside spot hidden skill. Okay, I don't really know what that means, but I'll do it and go on to the next one. Okay, so yeah, we're back to getting our bearings around the village. And it's the same as before, so I think I'll probably, not having much luck, try to find some local people with transportation needs. Not far from Zoe's home, on the north side of the street, there's an open courtyard. The rhythmic tattoo of a hammer seems to announce your approach. The courtyard is the busiest location you've seen yet in the village. It's bordered by a ring of workshops. Some are brick buildings, some only rough huts. A blacksmith ceases to hammer, thrusting something red and glowing into a cold bucket of water. A weaver looks up from their loom, blinking at you a moment before returning to their shuttle. A potter, engraver, and carpenter each work in their own space, exchanging friendly banter. You move among the artisans, chatting about their work. Eventually, you bring up the question of export. Some of them send occasional packages with Silas. Some restrict their custom entirely to villagers. You receive no suggestions about alternative transport. It now gives me the option to make a psychology roll, which doesn't exist for Cthulhu Invictus, but last time Ruin had suggested making, I believe it was, just intelligence. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. You're absolutely right, Plush. It would be a little bit odd to try and do Chaotic Academia solo. I don't think I could do justice to all of your characters. If I were to do that, I would do my damnedest, but it would be a little strange. Okay, so I got a 43. My intelligence is decently high, so that is a success. One of the workshops is closed. Excuse me. When you stray close to it, The repartee between the craftspeople becomes awkward, almost forced. Interesting. Okay. So it tells me I can make a check mark next to psychology as well. And then move on. Okay, well, it keeps bringing me back to the same entry of getting my bearings around the village. So apparently I am not doing what it wants me to do because we're just going in circles. I think I'm going to seek out the village hall. The village hall backs against a cliff at the east end of the street. It's the largest building you've seen so far in the village. It is, however, locked and shuttered. You walk around it, peering through the gaps in the shutters. There seems to be one large room, presumably for community meetings, and a smaller annex which serves as an office and archive. One of the windows is bricked up. Back at the main door, you can see no posted opening hours. Yes, they don't open the mornings this time of year, says a gray-garbed woman passing by. Best come back this afternoon. You ask whether there's any mail that goes out of the city. Don't know. Who would we write to? You'll have to try again later. Okay. I seem to be kind of being forced into one direction. Oh, here we go. I don't know how I missed this before, but it says you may choose another option from those below. Do not repeat a previous choice. Once you have tried 4 options, or before that, if you're ready to move on, go to 3. Cool. I should probably read these better, huh? Yeah, because I did more than 4. Okay. So our next entry. Your morning exertions have left you hungry. You roam the streets looking for sustenance. There's nothing that resembles the busy cafes or anything that might be called a restaurant, like you're used to in your hometown. It's beginning to look like you will have to get supplies from the general store. When Zoe comes down the street with a girl trailing in her wake. This must be her daughter. As she notices you, she races past her mother and approaches you with a smile. This is a much different child from the shy creature of last night. As she reaches you, she stops and stretches her arms up in celebration. She looks up into your eyes. Abruptly, a smile drops from her face, and she looks several years older. "Get out before the festival," she hisses. "Get out!" She blinks hard, and then scuttles back towards her mother. Zoe approaches, wrapping an arm around her daughter's shoulders. She smiles. "How are you getting on? Have you found transportation?" Startled, you explain the frustrations of the situation. "Oh, I tried the village hall, but they're only in the afternoon. You'll be hungry by now, I assume. Help yourself to any food in the house. The door's not locked." You glance back at her daughter, where she has squirreled herself behind her mother's leg. Her eyes implore you to silence. Let's see, so I've got a couple options here. If I ask the daughter about what she said, I can also ask Zoe about what her daughter said, and if I say nothing, which is what I'm going to choose, and we'll go on to 22. You take your leave and head towards the house. The door opens easily. In the low kitchen, you make a meal from stodgy bread and leftover stew. A little window offers a view to the mountains. If you learned one thing from this morning, it is what the village's streets hold It was that the village's streets hold little to occupy the visitor from out of town. But there are still about 5 hours of daylight remaining. You could take some provisions and bare essentials from your luggage and set out in hopes of reaching another settlement before dark. Or you could ask for advice at the town hall. I think I'm going to go to the town hall just because it's past a little bit of time. So the village hall overlooks the lower north ridge of the village. You walk along the street to find it, conscious of the oppressive black structure framed at the end of the road. The shutters of the hall are open, and some windows left ajar. There is no knocker, but a little bell over the entrance tinkles as you push the front door. Inside, a sturdy door to your right is marked Private. To your left, an opening leads through to a bright room. You take a few steps inside. Benches line the walls, and there are 2 notice boards mounted between the windows. So, I'm definitely going to go check out the notice boards. The floorboards creak beneath you as you cross the room. You feel a slight spring in your step. Perhaps this room is used as a gymnasium for the village children. One notice board appears to be for the adults of the community, and one for the children. The former looks neglected, featuring handwritten advertisements for household items, and a yellowed note about pricing for mail. There's nothing about the festival. The children's notice board has a schedule for a weekly babysitting services, and a number of paintings obviously done by the children themselves. Most are incoherent though colorful. As best you can tell, they depict various stories from mythology, and really just anything that kids would normally paint pictures of. Let's see. One has lost a pen and hangs upside down. It shows a giant bird attacking the village. Or it might simply be that the artist has not yet mastered the subtleties of scale. So it asks us to make another spot hidden. Oof. I am not going to succeed this one because I got an 82. Let's see. The door scrapes behind you. A middle-aged man appears in the doorway. May I help you? You explain you were visiting on Thoe's recommendation. Well, I'm Cleon. I'm not sure I can help you, but would you care for something to drink? He gestures to the open door behind him. This seems like a worthwhile opportunity, and you are a little thirsty. You just make a note of this dude's name. Okay. You step through the door marked Private. The other side of the village hall is in marked contrast to the public space. The room is compact, lined with shelves of scrolls and fine alcoves. One corner is reserved for a tiny pantry. You study Cleon as he fills his drink. Although thin on top, his hair is oiled and neatly swept back. He's dressed soberly and well-tailored, even if it is a little old-fashioned of a cut. A lesser man, working alone, might have loosened his tunic a little for comfort. On the desk, against the opposite wall, you notice what looks like instruments for writing and for delivering mail. To ask about it, we can go on, or we can make some small talk first. Yeah, no, I think I'm going to ask about it, because that's a little suspicious. Oh, that? Yes, much as we value our isolation, we do sometimes need to connect with others. Were you hoping to send a message? I must apologize, we haven't had an email delivered for 2 weeks. In a rural area like this, they're not very speedy to get out here. I am expecting someone, hopefully in the next few days, though. I do appreciate how frustrating this must be. Let's see. But perhaps one of the farmers might have a wagon you could engage. You explain that you have asked a few of the residents already, but to no avail. I tell you what, he says as he pours you a drink, which smells rich and strong. When the mailman arrives, I'll ask them to take you back with them. How would that be? They might want a little bit of money to grease the wheels, but day after tomorrow, it's less than ideal, but it's the first opportunity you've had. Let's see. So we have the option to thank him and leave or ask about his library. And I am a man of books and learning, so I think I'm going to ask about the library. You make a small but flattering remark about a couple of the scrolls on his shelves. He blushes with pleasure. Well, of course, they're not my personal collection. They belong to the village. But I did select most of the recent items. This is the community's library, you see. I put up the private sign to stop people just wandering in from meetings in the other room. But this really is a public space. You scan through the titles. There's a sparse but respectable collection on math and science, passable sections on history, the arts, and a shelf full of literature. He has a few more lowbrow writings tucked away in a corner, with tattered copies of more seedy types of writing. Quality does not always equate to popularity, I'm afraid, as he gives you an apologetic smile. And so it gives me the options to research in the library or to leave while it's still light outside. While I am very tempted to try and leave, books are definitely of interest. Well, not books, scrolls are of interest to Myron for sure. Cleon is happy for you to spend the rest of the afternoon in the study and offers you a comfortable chair. You have enough time to pursue one line of research in depth. So our options are to read about the history of the area, about the festival, to read something from the sciences, and some of the weird fiction. I think probably the festival, even though I don't know that's going to be very fruitful. Yep, you are not surprised to find there is no published work on the village's festival. Cleon pokes around and finds a handwritten, well, they would all be handwritten, finding a yellowed paper. And he says it's by an acquaintance of my father's, I believe. The manuscript is somewhat difficult to read, and you make slow progress. It speculates that the festival has its origin in much older rites, which celebrate ancient festivals of the late fall season. There is some discussion of the struggle between the seasons and a couple of oblique references to the alignment of the village. It also suggests that the meaning of the festival slowly changed around the turn of the past century. The writing terminates mid-sentence at the end of a page, just as it begins to discuss modern practices. You ask Cleon if he has the remaining pages. No, I'm afraid those might have been misplaced. Perhaps they're somewhere still in the library, but he shrugs. I must make the time. I must make the time to thoroughly go through everything. The afternoon wears on. You've not quite finished your reading when he glances out of the window and stands up and clears his throat. Let's see. So it asked me to make a credit rating roll, which does not exist in Invictus either. But I'm going to go with accounting, maybe. Let me see. Actually, let's go civics. Neither one is great for me, but... Oh, that is too perfect. I have a 30 in civics, and I rolled exactly a 30. Okay, so... Cleon says, I'm happy to leave you in charge for a half hour or so. Please don't... Please don't give out any of the scrolls to anyone. You thank him for his trust and continue with your reading for a time. As the light dims, you find yourself yawning in the closeness of the room. Perhaps it is time for a change of material. And we must now make a spot hidden. Okay. Oh, perfect. So my spot hidden is a 40 and I rolled a 39. Those are some pretty close but lucky rolls. I will definitely take it. As you scan the shelves, you try to move aside one of the 3 scrolls of grammar. It will not shift, and upon further investigation, you find they are actually glued together and attached to the wall. Is this some kind of unobtrusive way to reinforce the shelves? You hear footsteps in the hall, and on instinct, move away from this curious discovery. Okay. The door opens and Cleon re-enters the library. He wears a small, satisfied smile. His gaze shifts to where you stand at the shelves. Exhausted your stock already? Of course, we accept donations. I'm afraid it's closing time, though. You leave the building with him and wait as he locks up. You thank him for the drink and the access to the library, and he strolls his way down the street. As the light fades, you return to Thoe's house and eat a light supper. She's unusually taciturn, and her daughter's eyes flick to yours several times during the meal. There is an urgency there you cannot quite interpret. Afterwards, Thoe ushers her daughter into their room. You've been in the village for barely one whole day, and you already feel confined by it, both geographically and socially. The evening seems to offer little. Our options now are to do some stargazing, to attempt to speak to the daughter. If I have a previous appointment, then I can follow up on it now. Let's see, do I have anything else? Nope, those are my options. So I'm going to try and talk to the daughter. In time, Thoe returns to the kitchen and busies herself cleaning up. To speak to her daughter, you will need to get her to leave for a short while. You help with the dishes and try to think of some ruse. In time, an idea comes, and you ask about Silas and his friends in the village. She narrows her eyes and says, "Well, he does know someone on the other side of town, but not sure I'd call them friends, more like an old feuding couple, but he probably spent last night at his place." You ask if she could visit and inquire about Silas and whether he mentioned any plans to return. So he looks dubious. "Right now?" she asks. "Let's see. Oh, fun. Without looking at my investigator sheet, decide how best to influence Zoe, by appealing to her emotions, by explaining how further delay threatens your career, or trying to rush her into compliance." My options are charm, persuade, or fast talk. I'm going to go with fast talk. I do know that that is a pretty decent skill for me. I don't know if it's the best one, but I feel pretty confident about that. So let me make my roll. Ooh, it's a 72. But let's take a look at my character sheet. Oh, yeah, that's a fail. My fast talk is only 40. Okay. Zoe frowns and shakes her head. "I'll be happy to go see him in the morning, but I must see to my daughter now. She's been a terrible handful today." Her bedroom door closes with a heavy clunk. The familiar surroundings of your guest room are becoming constrictive. The neat bed, the small wardrobe, they feel like a prison cell. What are you still doing here in the village? Your new life is elsewhere. You lie on the bed and stare at the small crack in the ceiling. You turn over the day's events, thinking through the little details you spotted. You're certainly weary from the elevation and the fresh air, but do you still feel safe here? If you let yourself fall asleep, we'll go on to that one, or if I stay awake, which I think I do, we'll move on to a different option. Sleep presses down on you. You blink it back and sit up, trying to think through your situation. Everything in the village seems to be working to stop you from leaving. Perhaps the answer is to strike out at first light, to walk as fast as you can. You can always return for your possessions, and if you lose them, you have nothing so precious that it could not be replaced. A tiny creak draws your attention to the other side of the room. Slowly, almost silently, the doorknob is turning. So my options are to grab it and wrench the door open, or to pretend to be asleep, which I'm going to pretend to be asleep. You slide onto the bed and lie on your side, eyes closed. The door creaks open. There's a long pause. A footfall sounds inside the room, and then another. Steps are careful. You give it a moment, then open one eye a crack. Zoe crouches, with her back to you. She's fiddling with something in the fireplace. To confront her, we'll go on to that page, or to wait and see what happens, which is what I'm going to do. We're going to go on to the second option. After another few moments, Zoe glances around at you. Then you hear the soft scratch of a fire being lit. She applies it to something in the grate and tiptoes from the room. Once you hear her bedroom door, you creep to the grate. A small mound of powder, no bigger than a thimble, is burning there. It gives off heady fumes. So I now have to make a hard science, it has botany in parentheses, roll. Excuse me. And a hard roll means that I have to get, I believe, if I remember right, that's my 1/5. which means that since you have to roll lower than the number for Cthulhu, there's like the half, and then there's like the fifth of your ability. And I don't. Okay, now I've got a decent science. Let's see. I don't know that it's going to roll that low. It is not. So I got an 80, which is above even my normal science roll. So I did not do well there. So since I did not succeed, my options are to extinguish the powder and go to sleep, or stay awake through the night, or I may relax and breathe the fumes out of curiosity. I think I'm going to extinguish them. You awaken to the sounds of feet in the street outside. Your night's rest has brought new determination. Today, you'll meet the village on your own terms. The kitchen of the house is empty, although food has been laid out for your breakfast. There is a note explaining that Zoe and her daughter have gone out for a few hours. Okay. You make a quiet circuit of the village, pausing in unobtrusive places to watch the villagers. It's rather busy for this time in the morning. Yawning locals stream back and forward along the roads, carrying bundles of split logs to the site that you've already heard referred to as the beacon. You see two figures already up in its superstructure, arranging the wood. The festival bonfire will be most impressive. But do you intend to stay to see it? You suspect by now that something is amiss here. While the villagers are distracted, you may do some illicit investigation. Or you may simply leave the town without looking back. I think at this point, Myron, while he wants to get the heck out of Dodge, he's probably more curious, so can search Zoe's room, go alone to the village hall, take a closer look at the artisan's courtyard, spy on activity at the beacon, and then to slip down the road and flee for good. I think after the weirdness of last night, I'm going to go to Zoe's room. Despite her hospitality, you do not trust Zoe. You return to her house quite openly. Where else would you go? Inside the dwelling is still empty. You rap on the bedroom door and wait. Silence. You ease it open. Her bedroom is in marked contrast to your own, which is very neat. Dirty clothes are piled around the floor. On a rough blanket lie scrolls of various sorts. You notice a ragged old doll discarded down the side of the bed. It asked me to make a spot hidden roll. Okay, I got a 56. And shoot. My spot hidden is a 40, so that is not a success. You go through the drawers of the room, and the only item of interest you find is a portrait. Zoe's husband was a wiry man with a square chin. Despite the formality of the pose, you can see that there is an affection between them. You feel a pang of guilt at your intrusion. Also, she may return at any time. So if you wish to push, which is like pushing your luck on the spot hidden roll, I can roll it again, and if I succeed, do that. So yeah, I'm going to push it. Oh, that's even worse. Okay. Well, this is not going to go well. A shadow falls across you. So, Thoe says, you know. You try to get to your feet. A mob of villagers spills from behind her and surrounds you. You struggle, but you cannot resist the sheer weight of their numbers. You're quickly overpowered. The fading light from a narrow window tells you the afternoon is giving way to evening. Your hands are shackled behind your back, so you cannot even lie down on the rough bed. A woman you have not seen before comes in. Her face is wrinkled, and her eyes dull. They do not meet yours, but she puts a cup to your lips, which I'm going to reject. It's not even an option for me. I do have the option, but that just, no. You turn your face away, and when she tries again, you dash the cup from her hands using the side of your head. The clear liquid spills across the floor. The woman gives a half shrug and turns to leave the room. You shout after her, but she gives no reaction. You soon become thirsty. Shit. As the light fades outside, your little prison becomes dark. You can hear much activity around the building. Occasionally, an orange glow passes the window. The only comfortable position in the shackle seems to be to sit against the end of the bed with your arms hanging behind you. You need to concentrate and come up with a plan. There's clearly no escape from your bonds. You do not know exactly what your captors want from you, but you cannot ignore the fact that they spend the entire day constructing a massive bonfire. The door scrapes, wrenching you back into the moment. Orange light spills into the house from blazing torches held at the threshold. 2 large villagers step in and grab you. At least, you assume they are villagers. They wear heavy black cloaks. Their faces and hands are painted entirely black, save only for a red triangle centered on their left eye. You try to drag your legs, but they reach under your arms and lift you bodily from the bed. Outside, it seems that the whole village has congregated to see you. Every single one has a blackened face with a red triangle motif. Torches sputter and spill fire. You struggle, but you can see physical resistance is hopeless. You are marched to the central street and turn to face the beacon. The procession down the approach is slow and formal, save when you sense weakness and yank at your captors. A chill touches you when you see 3 human shapes carried ahead of you, draped in red cloth. The beacon looms larger and larger, its dreadful silhouette a black triangle pointed to the stars. A low drone begins among the cloaked figures. Unbidden, the word mourners comes to mind. Smoke from their torches makes you cough. You feel heat on your face. As you reach the cleared area around the beacon, 3 dancers break from the pack. Young girls swinging balls of fire in spectacular arcs, drawing circles in the night air. One by one, they draw close around you and touch your forehead with sooty fingers. Each kisses you 3 times on the left cheek, right cheek, and then forehead. They whisper in your ear. Okay. An app roll. It says to make an app roll, which I do have. I don't remember. Oh, I think that's appearance. So, oh, okay. That is a 9, which is good no matter what, pretty much. Oh, yeah, that's a hard success. Cool. I didn't need a hard success here, but that is helpful. Through your sacrifice, the village will be reborn, says the first dancer. You passed from earth to air for all our sakes, says the second. I've weakened the chains, says the third. Don't try to escape until the flames are high enough to hide you. You stare at the third dancer in that inky visage. You clearly discern the frightened features of Thoe's daughter. Their dance weaves off and disappears behind the buildings. As you arrive beneath the beacon, 10 villagers close in on you. Working with surprising coordination, they immobilize you and lift you up the blackened iron stairs to the raised platform. You cannot help but shiver at the sight of the central framework, twisted from past blazes and what you can now clearly see to be fastening points for chain. None of the eyes meet yours as they lash you to the metal. The village sings now, something rhythmic and ancient, carved from odd syllables. A second group ascends to the beacon, carrying the 3 red-draped bodies. With reverence, they arrange their burdens in a triangle around your feet. Then they withdraw, leaving you alone with the dead, shin-deep in a sea of kindling. It seems the entire village is gathered around the beacon to watch you burn. Beneath their face paint, you recognize Thoe. And yes, that is Silas, the the captain of the ship, standing at her side. The audacity and scale of the deception staggers you. A man steps up on the dais and raises his hands with quiet authority. So, we draw here together again on this night, as we do each year. We give thanks to the one who will preserve the village against the fire of the void. You will be taken by the ones from above in our stead. Your death will bring life to our streets and bounty to our fields. It will safeguard our children and our elders alike for another year. We salute you. And he bows his head. All around the beacon, bearers step forward and lift their torches to the edge of the raised platform. A ring of tiny flames flicker up around the perimeter. As they wink, the singing of the villagers drops in an unearthly rhythm. So my options are to throw all my strength against the bonds, or to wait and see what happens, and I'm going to take the daughter's advice. I'm going to wait and see. The flames snake across the kindling, catching and rising. Smoke rises and it becomes difficult to see the villagers. The 3 bodies surrounding you catch fire, blazing with sooty red flames. You begin to cough as the smoke enters your lungs, and you fight down the urge to panic. Let's see. Flames lick at your legs. Your eyes water. You are shrouded in smoke. It might be your imagination, but you think you can feel a slight give in the chains. You throw yourself against them, giving no thought to how they bite at your wrists. Let's see. So I take 1d6 points of damage, and I don't think that's going to knock me out, but let me see. Oh, yeah, no, I'm good. That won't knock me out no matter what. So I have to make a strength roll. Ooh, it's a 65. I don't think that's going to go so well for old Myron. It is not. That is a failure. The chains give a little more. You feel that you could overcome them, if only you had a little more time. But as you feel the flesh of your legs char, the fire spreads up your jacket and licks at your face. And you know that you have run out of time. You have burned to death at the beacon. The end. Well, I certainly did not see that coming for our protagonist, but thank you all for a solid second session and last session of Alone Against the Flames. I'll probably play some more Solo Cthulhu at some point, and it's possible that someone else will try and play this again, if I can convince any of my other players from Hammer the Gods to give this a shot, and we'll see how it goes.